Good morning, party people. Good. Audio's working. Howdy, folks. It's good vibes. Thank you. So I have asthma, so whenever I start talking out of nowhere, like I haven't talked for hours, all of a sudden I'll cough. And I cough at other times too, but it's just always funny that I don't talk before I come on screen. I don't talk before I come on camera. So I'm walking all over the house, getting all kinds of things done. And then I start talking and I immediately cough. I'm like, oh, come on, what's up with that? G. Certain, good afternoon, good morning, and evening to everyone around in different time zones. Spitfire, good to see you again from the UK as well. And then we had Honey from India showed up too early, just getting started. So this morning's goal, I don't know if you, Pete says, wow, perfect timing for lunch, sitting outside in the Scottish sunshine. I have never been to Scotland. I mean, I've been into like Wales, and I want to say I crossed the border into Scotland a couple of times, but nothing like staying extended times, and I've always wanted to. I adore, as Americans, we all adore the idea of Ireland and Scotland. And the same thing for me with Wales, a lot of those kind of rolling countryside type things. And y'all's amazing accents. The accents are so beautiful. Oh, Santi, you're too kind. Thank you. Yeah, Surgeon. Well, it's probably because he's drunk. That's probably how that works. But so I'm wearing one of my favorite hats from one of my favorite places on earth, the Isle of Man. Surly Dev, good to see you from the UK as well. So Isle of Man, just absolutely adore. And so I got to go there for a client, which I just love this client too. But I got to go there for a client, and I never would have gotten over there for other reasons. But it was gorgeous, and it reminded me of like a mini Ireland or Scotland. Yossi, you're absolutely right. And David, I agree with you. At some point, I will. Pete says, get over here. I was tempted to head up to Iceland. I've been to Iceland twice now, I think. We went for 10 days 2 years ago. Went for 2 days in 20, we went for 10 days and then we went for a month. We went for a month earlier this year and left just during the quarantines. I still, every single day, I wonder what it would have been like to stay in Iceland instead of coming back home to the United States, because it was just so interesting. I got PWT once. I wonder what PWT is. Sounds like a disease. Could be kind of scary there. I'm a little worried about that. Czech Republic, another gorgeous place. Yossi says, what's your opinion on subqueries versus CTEs? Generally speaking, they optimize out roughly the same. Like you can do the two and they'll produce an equivalent query plan. It's just that the more complex your query, oh, that's funny. I believe that from Isle of Man. The more complex your query gets, SQL Server tries an execution plan, and then it'll keep trying more execution plans as it tries to optimize your query. But the way that you write it can influence which execution plans it chooses first. So that's why it can end up making more of a difference. It's less about which one's better, subqueries versus CTEs. It's more about in different situations. Yeah, Yossi, that's a great way of saying it. It's just, for me, it's mostly readability. I prefer CTEs because they feel more easy to write to me. Plus, I can copy paste them a little easier in between queries. But Surly Dev about the Wall of Rain too thing. One of my other favorite things about Isle of Man is that you can get great wet weather gear in Isle of Man. Cheap, because people buy so much wet weather gear over there. They actually get good. Here in San Diego, California, we don't get any good wet weather gear. So I love going and buying wet weather gear in Iceland, Isle of Man, all that kind of thing. Ooh, Janice, so you're getting table spools. Odds are, it depends on what the table spools are. Hover your mouse over the table spool and look at the sort and see what it's sorting by. You can index for that. Wilfred, I absolutely do need a stroopwafel. Oh, man, I would just completely love a stroopwafel, especially with fresh espresso in here. You know, you set the stroopwafel over the coffee. For those of you who haven't had a stroopwafel yet, even in the ones that you get from the store, if you just go buy a package of stroopwafels are these little cakes, or not cakes, they're like crackers with caramel in between two layers. The key is that you set it on top of a hot cup of coffee, and then it just warms them up perfectly. Oh, so good. Just ridiculous. Abused sysadmin. Oh, I love that name. Abused sysadmin says, I've been able to make a huge difference in execution plans by manipulating CTEs. I agree. And that really it's the case with any kind of query, right? Like when someone brings you a query to tune, often they just didn't know what they were doing when they were writing it. It wasn't their fault. They copy pasted a bunch of stuff from different, it's like a Frankenstein query that they assembled from lots of pieces. And by rewriting it into a more elegant way, you can change what SQL Server knows about it. Yossi says, what is this morning's drink? Straight espresso, just espresso. I don't need espresso to be energetic. I wake up and I'm just like, ta-da, no alarm or anything like that. On the flip side, you don't want to be around me at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. David says, any news when you... Oh, Santi, I'm actually... A friend of mine is working on that. Eric Darling is actually working on a course with that. So keep your eyes tuned. We'll see what happens. David says, any news on when we in the UK can join your courses? Obviously, with my Isle of Man hat on, it's always near and dear to my brain, literally. So part of doing my classes over streaming, I don't do public classes over Twitch, but the private classes that I do are all in... yeah, no, that is not an Americano. This is just espresso. The private classes that I do, I'm using a private streaming provider, the mux.com. But my goal is so that I could get rid of GoToWebinar and WebEx and those kind of things. I'm not happy with the way they treat your data over. Good morning, Jedi Mind Gorilla. The way they treat your data over GDPR, and I don't want to sell anything to the UK or to just the EU in general until I can be confident that when you pull the right to be deleted lever, that your data's gone and that I don't have to lift a finger. Like, I don't want to just be tolerant with the letter of the law. I want to be tolerant with the spirit of the law. I want you to be able to vamoose out of the systems really quickly. So I want to set a good example for how good we treat your data. And I'm just not confident that we can be there yet. Streaming was a lot closer, made it a lot closer. Jedi Mind Grill says, I missed the last one, but in my defense, I was sleeping, and I am okay with that. I am too. So, really, the reason why I'm streaming now, it's, 5:13 a.m. on Memorial Day, which is a holiday out in the United States. The reason why I'm streaming now is my wife doesn't wake up until around 8 or 9 a.m. Surly Dev. You would have to change your name, Surly Dev. Not your real name, but at least like your nickname. Hannibal asked a question earlier, and it scrolled past. Hello and greetings from France. Bonjour. There's a friend of mine, not a friend of mine, an American chef who did a show in France and goes, bonjour, y'all. And I always think of that. Paula Dean, for those of you in the U.S. Hello and greetings from France. Tell us how you feel about the adoption of SQL database within your customers. 0. Absolutely none. However, having said that, people come to me when they're having performance problems and they've hit a wall. So if you were an Azure advocate, what you would say is, well, Brent, it's because in Azure there aren't any performance problems and they don't need your help. And I'd be like, I don't know that I really believe that. But what I do see is the kinds of clients who come to me usually have already grown their hardware as hard as they possibly can. You're absolutely right. So they've already grown their hardware as high as they possibly can, and they're still hitting performance bottlenecks. The clients that I have actually sent people to Azure, like software vendors, people who have one database per client. And I've said, you've got hundreds of databases. You're not doing a good job of managing all of them. They're not high performance. They're not individually, they're not really that bad. Why don't you just put them all in Azure SQL DB? And then that way you can size databases differently per client. If somebody wants super high performance, you can move them to a larger, hardware size type thingy, turn up their performance quota. So in terms of me doing active performance tuning on Azure SQL DB, absolutely 0. But I push people into there when their needs just weren't that high. Am I saying that Azure SQL DB is slow? Not at all. It's just that the kinds of people who hire me usually have applications that do cross joins, cross database joins. They join across several databases, which is a no-go in Azure SQL DB. Yossi, you may or not be watching me in the mirror. That's really intriguing. This is going to sound so baller. In my master bathroom, I have a TV built into the mirror. I didn't build it that way. It just came this way in this apartment. But when you're in the bathroom, you hit a button and the TV in the mirror goes on. And so you can watch the morning news while you're taking a shower or whatever. I'm like, that makes no sense to me because the bathroom, Yossi saw it in a hotel recently. The bathroom, I want a break. Can there be one place in the world where I don't get bad news? Do I really need bad news while I'm in the bathroom? And it's not like, I mean, I could put on the Animal Planet or, something fun and friendly, I suppose, if I want. Oh, good. Glad you're, hi, Mark. Glad you're liking them. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. From Tasmania. So this morning's coding. I assume it's one way. I don't actually know. Oh, the reflection behind me. Oh, yeah. So here you kind of get a feel for my office there. That's the downtown San Diego. Obviously, the sun hasn't risen yet. Usually the sun rises here around this time of year, around 6 a.m. So you'll see that rise throughout the course of the day. We'll change camera angles here in a second when I start coding, though. So my goal for today, so tomorrow I teach a class called Fundamentals of Parameter Sniffing. And in Fundamentals of Parameter Sniffing, one of the things that I talk about are the things that will clear parts of your plan cache and cause you problems. Well, one of those things is when stats get updated on a table. When stats get updated on a table, it invalidates the plans in the cache that refer to that table, or those objects is a better way of saying it with statistics. Well, SP Blitz First should tell you about that. SP Blitz First is my stored procedure that I want to run first whenever there are performance issues. Like the very first thing that I'll go do is go jump in and run SP Blitz First. That'll tell me what's going on the server right now. Well, I can find out when statistics were recently invalidated or when statistics were recently updated, and then that'll tell me which plans cleared from the cache. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to write a new check for SP Blitz First that I'll be able to show in tomorrow's training class on Fundamentals of Parameter Sniffing. It's funny, when you teach stuff, it forces you to write things that you've always wanted to write. So what you're going to see me do is you're going to see me work in SP Blitz First, but before I do that, I'm going to write a proof of concept query to see when were statistics last updated, and then I'm going to need to expand that so that it also checks across all databases. So let's jump in and I'll show you how it works. So the first thing that I'm going to go do is I'm going to go try to write a query that shows me when statistics were recently updated on each object, like each table, each index, and so forth. So let's switch over to the Stack Overflow database. I'm using the big monster. I should probably use a smaller Stack Overflow database here, just because I'm going to be updating statistics and rebuilding stuff. So let's say select star from sysindexes. So sysindexes is a system table that will give you out all of the indexes in a database, including the ones that ship with like Microsoft's own stuff. Well, I want to see when the stats were updated on each of these. When I'm doing spelunking like this, if I don't know the DMV that I'm looking for, I really love just trying to use autocomplete. So like saying select star from sys statistics. And there isn't anything. Well, what about stats? Is there anything like sysstats? And there is a sysstats in here. Let's go see what has inside of him. There's no date. There's a bunch of stuff, but there's not a date in terms of when he was last updated. All right, so if autocomplete isn't going to help me out, there's another thing that I can do. Select star from sys all objects. All objects is a DMV that shows you all stored procedures, functions, views, everything. So I can say where name like stat. And let's go see if we get anything that might help, and we'll go order by type desk name. Type desk is the type of description or the object that it is. So it looks like we've got some internal tables here, but they appear to relate to query store. Coming a little down, we have system stored procedures. We have table valued functions like DMDB stats properties. I don't know that that goes back in time. I don't know how far back that goes. Let's go copy that and dump that into Google, because I don't think So sys properties, and let's look at the version up at the time. There's nothing up at the version. Okay, all right. Does it give me the stats? Yes. Oh, gives me stats last updated. As a side note too, you might be saying, Brent, why don't you just Google for how do you tell when stats were last updated? Well, when you're writing software, especially open source software from scratch, you don't want to copy paste things off other people's blogs or websites unless you know what the rights are on those scripts. It's very dangerous to copy copyrighted stuff. Thank you for the follow, Silence. Oh, it's not showing my overlays. Let me go show my overlays inside there. There we go. That works better. And I should move that up above my camera so that it pops up. All right, there we go. All right, so there that goes. So I got this DMV here, sys whatever it was, blah, 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 blah. Let's go grab this, copy. Oh, look at you down here. Oh, look at, oh, ooh. All right, so we got some other stuff inside here. Sys objects, sys stats, let's go copy. Dan Dita, do I take questions from chat? No. See how I did that? I took a question from chat. Yeah, absolutely. Fire away. Feel free. As long as it's related to whatever it is that we're talking through. Okay, so there we go. So we have, y'all like that, huh? None of that, none of that. So this will go through and give me a bunch of objects here. Does it show anything about my user tables? Aha! Here's the users table, and it looks like the last time, Dandita, yes, you're the only one. So the thing is, in terms of ORMs, and I'm going to say this because anytime I get the chance, hold on a second. Anytime I get the chance to say this to database administrators, I say this. Here's the deal with ORMs. ORMs are object relational mapping tools like Entity Framework, Link to SQL, and so forth, and Hibernate. ORMs get you paid. That isn't some kind of joke about ORMs write crappy SQL and they help you tune them. ORMs help developers. Developers are the people who do the work, remember. Developers ship lots of features quickly. It's the faster that you can ship features, the more you can get money brought in internally, and you can get paid. Your company pays you when customers give money. So thanks, Rafal, for the follow. So your customers, your people pay you money whenever you ship features. You never hear customers go, you know what I really want is I want an application that only uses stored procedures. I want, that's my big part of my purchasing process. No, hell no. All they really care about is they want to make sure that they get features shipped as quickly as possible. If you told your developers, you're never allowed, this is the noise that all DBAs make. Even the women make the same exact noise. You're never allowed to use ORMs again. You have to write all your queries by hand, in stone, on stored procedures. Did you go over there? If you all of a sudden lay down that law and they turn to the keyboard and start writing T-SQL, you think it's going to be good? Think it's going to be good T-SQL? You think it's going to go fast? No, hell no. Especially because your company doesn't have any money. Your company doesn't have any money for training at all. That's why you're here, because you ain't got no money for training. Yeah? You're here on Twitch because you're broke as all hell. That's not really true. Maybe it's true. I don't know. Jedi Mind Gorilla. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's very cool. Jedi Mind Gorilla, if you want me to record an alert for that, shoot me an email at help@brentozar.com, and I will totally record a wave for that. Dandita says, the thing is, I'm developing an ORM is getting in the way of me doing the app. Dude, you can't even type with punctuation. You can't even use punctuation and capitalization, and you're going to blame an ORM? Oh my God, if your T-SQL looks like what you type in, come on now. Come on now. That's not even close. It's not even fair. Should have moved this thing over before I started. So hopefully that lays down that law. So I'm a huge fan of ORMs because they get us paid as quickly as possible, and then we can go on to tuning. Whenever a thing doesn't perform, we can go, all right, look, now this is the part we're going to go promote up into a stored procedure or up into dynamic SQL or however it is that we love to do it. Y'all, those of y'all who love Clippy, I'll tell you, you've got something amazing coming. There's some really slick stuff that I'm working on with my good friend Clippy. Okay, so now back over to this thing over here. Oh, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name. Yeah, exactly. There you go. And I love giving. I love Dandita. Welcome to the club. We've seen you before in here too. When somebody says they've got like 4 CPU cores, I'm always like, oh, you mean like my iPad? Yeah, you mean like my iPad that I carry around. This thing has 8 cores, but okay, that's all right. That's cool. All right, so back over here, we got sysdmdb stats properties. This appears to give me what I want in terms of last updated. So now what I need to do is I want to nice flex. I want to find out just the stuff that was recently updated. So there was a filter on here when I first cut this out, but what Books Online was doing was they were saying where modification counter is greater than something. I don't care about that. What I am concerned about is where last updated is greater than a specific date. Damn it, Microsoft, why don't you fully prefix everything that you've got up here in the object list? They should fully prefix this. Let's do SP last updated, and I believe that's SP modification counter. Where SP last updated is greater than date add. Let's see here. Minutes, I think is min. This might be MI. Things in the last 15 minutes. Get date. So let's go see. All right, good. So now we have a query that shows us what stats were updated in the last 15 minutes, and it's not showing anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rebuild an index. I'm going to say alter table DBO users rebuild, so that when it whoops, I'm going to even spell rebuild correctly. What the hell? I'm going to do alter table rebuild so that it does update stats. Then let's go in and look at that select and fantastic, absolutely wonderful. Stepped off and adjusted my lights there. So now that's absolutely fantastic. Now I have something that shows me stats that were updated in the last 15 minutes. I want the name to be a little cleaner. I want to show the table and, or the database, the table, the index, and the time that it was updated, maybe even the number of rows that it had in it. Spencer says, not to interrupt you, the hell you think you just did. But do you have any content about extended events? No, huh? Are they awesome? Yes, absolutely. I just don't focus my training on that. For training on that, go to Pluralsight. Pluralsight has a bunch of content about extended events, and it's cheap as hell. It's I don't know, it's like $100 a year or something like that, and all kinds of stuff on extended events. So I would totally go there. Surely, Dev, I need to remember not to listen to Brent with headphones on. That's probably too loud, too. Let me turn down. I'm going to turn down the cheering and all that. Let's move that down a little bit further. Yossi says, do you use a SQL formatter? I don't, only because I often jump from one client to machine to the other, and because I use Azure Data Studio when I normally do my development work. However, I'm not using it here only because I try to meet people where they're at. Like most of y'all use Management Studio. If any of you thoroughly Dev says it was me. If any of you use Azure Data Studio as part of your regular work, say something in the chat like I use Azure Data Studio, just because I always look for a feeling of how many people use that versus Management Studio. Actually, y'all, over in the chat, say whether you use Azure Data Studio or Management Studio when you're writing T-SQL. I'll give you 10 seconds to give me a rough rundown of which one of those two you use so that I can keep an eye.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,
MySQL Workbench.
1.
Yeah, so most of you are on SSMS. And Yossi says, I don't use Azure Data Studio, but I'd be interested to see it. What I'll do, and several people have said in the chats that they wanted to see Azure Data Studio in one of these streams. I'll work on that in one of my next ones. The thing is, I usually use it with like a big 4K monitor. But folks are saying MySQL Workbench. The trick is here, of course, we're using Microsoft SQL Server, so it's not MySQL Workbench. But T-SQL is kind of the same universally all over the world. Botsko says some resources on how to use it. See, that's the trick with Azure Data Studio. There aren't a lot of resources yet because it's brand spanking new. It's freaking, well, I say brand spanking new. It's like a year old. But it is changing so fast, like they're evolving it so quickly, that there aren't a lot of really good resources on how to use it yet. Santi, I'm glad you repeated that. I'm going to talk about that. I'll take a second to talk about that. So there aren't a lot of good resources on how to use Azure Data Studio yet. It's worth it to me to figure it out just because I've spent about half my time in Postgres and half my time in SQL Server. So it feels like it's just the ultimate perfect tool for me. Now, the reason we got here is one of you asked about my code formatting choices. If I used SSMS, I would use Redgate's SQL prompt, because I used that for years, and I even remember the reformatting. Control-K, Control-Y reformats your T-SQL with Redgate SQL prompt. It's wonderful. It's really nice. Gives you nice automatic join completions. I want to say it's about $500 though, and the licensing's a little tricky. Like it's licensed per machine that you're on. They have a phone home licensing thing, which is a pain in the rear for me because I jump all the time from machine to machine and VM to VM. But if I had a real job instead of a consultant, then if I stuck with the same laptop every day, I would buy Redgate SQL Prompt immediately. It's fantastic. So Santi asks, what was the ideal expected time interval for refreshing stats? Me personally, I like it weekly. The reason I like it weekly is that whenever you update stats, it frees the plan cache for objects that have those indexes in them, indexes, tables, stats, whatever in them. I don't want my plan cache to be unpredictable. I want my plan cache to be very predictable. And I know people who update their stats every single night, and guess what happens when they come into work in the morning? All their plan cache has gone to hell in a handbasket. They're having all kinds of parameter sniffing problems. They're the ones causing the parameter sniffing problems. And we talk about that in tomorrow's class, Fundamentals of Parameter Sniffing. So now I got this query up here that will at least go give me the stats that were updated in the last 15 minutes. Let's also get the database name. I'm going to try to build it into a nice string because here's what I want it to say. I want it to say Stack Overflow 2010, DBO users, and then whatever the PK or index, we'll say it like this, index PK users ID was updated on YYYMMDD with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. So this is what I want the warning to tell people inside of SP Blitz first. This is the string I need to manufacture. Let's go do that. So to get the database name, we're going to go say DB name. So there's that, and then we'll say object name is going to be the table name. We know this already. Then we also need the schema. So I'm going to need, where's the schema out of sysobjects? I want to say it's schema name, object, schema ID. Oh, beautiful. Okay. So let's see here. I don't need the object ID. I don't need the stat. I'll take the stat name. Yeah, sure. SP stat last updated. I don't need modification counter. I would like to get the number of rows in it. 385 a user. Yeah, Mackle says still a bit for something SSMS should provide. It does. It's just that SSMS's version of it is really distasteful. So now I can assemble these together. Autobots unite! Now I can say, I'm going to quote name these so that I get the nice little brackets around them. So quote name is something, just so that y'all see, for those of you who haven't seen quote name before. Quote name is a function that will help me out when I have objects with spaces in them. So if I said select quote name, my special table. If I do that, SQL Server will automatically bracket around it for me. So I'm going to say, because you're going to sooner or later in your life, you're going to run into problems where there are objects with spaces in them. Wilfred, I missed your comment on YouTube. He said auto update stats is not recommended by you. Oh, it is. It totally is. I love auto update stats, but I just update once a week manually, and as long as I'm updating once a week, that should prevent most of the problems of it updating a stat in the middle of the day. Yossi was going to say, I was just going to say, this concatenation is going to be messy. Yes, it is. Quote name plus, plus, quote name. DevArt's SQL Complete Express is free. Yeah, well, I generally find the stuff that's for free is roughly worth what you pay for it. It's nowhere near as cool as Redgate's SQL prompt. And for me, $385 isn't that big of a deal. I'm an American, so our wages here are a little weird compared to the rest of everybody in the US. Yeah, we make a lot of money, but our expenses are insane. And as you may know from the news, we have to buy our own health care and things like that. Look, we haven't figured it all out yet. We've got some work here to do. Vassal says concat. I don't think concat goes all the way back to SQL Server 2008. Not 100% sure, but I don't think concat goes back to 2008. Let's go take a quick look. So SQL Server concat. So boy, if it's at W3 schools, it almost always goes, woo, gather PL, thank you, I appreciate that, that's very cool. I need to move that up a little bit higher too, that alert box, so that it gets the whole thing inside there. Oh, Yossi says, why does 2008 matter? And Vassal says, yeah, 2012. No, because I try to support SQL Server 2008 all the way back to 2008. SP Blitz and SP Blitz First, all those things should work all the way back to 2008, and there are still a lot of people who support 2008, so thanks for following the one, Lucas. Welcome to the club. So let's see here. Concat, quote name, schema. I don't have to retype that. I've already got it down here. Schema name, So we got that. Plus n plus. Diaconera says, what's the purpose of n before the string? That means Unicode. So that if I'm doing Unicode type work, because some of your tables are going to be Unicode, table names, schema names, object names, etc. can be Unicode. You can use emojis in there, all kinds of stuff. This just makes sure that I don't lose any fidelity as I go through and concatenate variables together. So quote name, object name, why is my shift not working worth a damn here today? So there's that guy. So that's perfect. There's our object name now, plus an index, and then quote name, and we'll call it statistic. It's not Paresh. Oh, Paresh, good to see you. Oh, I like Paresh. Paresh is wonderful. I like you. You're a good person. A very good person. You're friendly, upbeat. Always nice to see you at events. And I hope I get to see you. My keyboard took a shift on him. Surly Dev, I'm pretty sure you can use a poop emoji for a temp table. Let's go fire open Chrome and go find out. I'm going to close out of a whole bunch of stuff here just to make sure it doesn't do my music. Poop emoji. Pile of poop emoji. Let's see if I get, I might not be able to because of I'm not going to go there. Copy. Let's try it just to see. Paste. Okay, so create table, boom, as ID int. No, so much for that. So much for that. You can use ASCII stuff like a shrug, but okay, so back over on this thing. Kalesh, I don't understand your question. Ask your question again, but try to rephrase it in a different way. And this actually is an index. I need to change this to statistic. Quote name, stat name. Whoops, I need a plus sign there. Plus, quote name, stat name. Plus, was updated on. Plus, that's pretty nice, Gawabunga. I like that. That's pretty good. Windows in SSMS. I don't even know what you're doing. Oh, you're doing. I bet. Twitch, JWK. I bet what you're doing is you're typing in like a hex code or something. The problem is I'm not going to go that far off topic just because I know if I go in down that rat hole, it's going to trigger all kinds of other demos. So, but you all are welcome to put in your T-SQL that you want to share with each other on how to test stuff like that. Drop table. So let's see here. Was last updated on, and now just to keep it, I'll put the plus on the end there. I need to format that. I want to format the last updated date because if I do it right now, Yeah, I can't just concat the date time piece, so I got to convert that. I could just do cast as date time, but the problem with doing that is I don't necessarily get the format. Oops, that's not, come on, you moron. It's not as date time. It's as nvarchar, let's say 50. The problem with casting as nvarchar is I'm not going to get the format that I want. So we're getting really close. I got lucky there, and I got the format that I want because I actually get YYMMDD. Botsko says is format okay to use. I've read that it is slow. Really, it depends on where you use a function. Like if you use things like functions in a where clause, they can be slow. Generally speaking, when you're selecting things on the way out the door, right, Surly Dev, exactly. So I used cast just because I end up using it for all kinds of strings. But what I was showing here is that if you just do cast, you don't get to pick the date time format. And I would rather pick the specific date time format that I want. So to do that, SQL Server cast convert date. Books Online is actually phenomenal here. Books Online, I poop on, oops. I poop on Microsoft a lot. Like I give them all kinds of a hard time because to some extent they can take it. Nobody else out there is really giving them a hard time. However, Microsoft's efforts on documentation are phenomenal, are just amazing, because those folks, man, I tell you what, anytime you want to copy paste things out of the syntax, Books Online is great. I especially jumping back and forth between Microsoft SQL Server and MySQL, Postgres, all these other ones. The documentation's all over the map. You know, you have to go to all kinds of third-party sites. So several of y'all are saying, there's an ISO date time format too. So anytime I can preach this to people, there's like one correct. Surly Dev says it's getting lighter in San Diego. Yes, getting a little nicer out there. So anytime I can get people to use like the one good date format, I love showing them this XKCD comic. So if I search for XKCD date format, XKCD has this really good format tool, what the hell? I'm jumping, my mind is still back over there in date formatting. So this is the one public way to write a correct date format. So now let's go ahead and get our stuff in that format. So we'll switch. Oops, I still need Books Online, actually. I need Books Online to go get me the formatting for that for 8601. So this is 8601. Do-do-do. I don't know why I said do-do-do instead of just putting it out there. So this is the one with no spaces and a T for time zone formatting. I don't actually like using that with the no spaces. I prefer using a space in between the time zones. So Jedi Mind Gorilla, yeah, it does make a difference. So I prefer this one, which is the ODBC canonical, when I'm showing it to human beings. Just because this one doesn't have spaces, this one does have spaces. Plus, the date time format, I want it to be in the server's local time zone. So I'm going to say 121. So cast 121, cast or convert. Hi, hello. Cast, and it is nvarchar 50. SP last updated, and then the style was, what did I say it was? 121. 121. So let's see what we get here with this one. And so this is okay. It stopped returning rows because it's been more than 15 minutes. I'm just going to change this to 150 minutes and then copy. And let's see what we get. Yes, I will take it. I'm out of espresso. It's time to go fix that. Okay, so, and I also need the number of rows. Now, I also want to get the number of rows in an object. Now, this is where it's going to start to get tricky. I should switch over to the side thing here for a second to have this conversation. You would think it would be easy to get the number of rows in an object. And I always say object because you can have things like filtered statistics, for example. You would think it would be easy to get the number of rows in an object. The thing is, with tables, you can have partitioning. Since SQL Server 2005, every object is considered to be partitioned. It's just that in Standard Edition, or for unpartitioned objects, it just happens to have only one partition in it. So you have to group together the number of partitions and get the total altogether of rows all throughout the object. Wilfred says, yes, use sys indexes. So what we're going to do is we're going to go take a look and see if the stats counter happens to have the number of rows in the stat, because that would make it way easier instead of joining out to lots of other tables or system DMVs. Because my concern whenever I ship something inside my code is that people have, howdy Sim Sam, welcome to the club. People have tens of thousands of objects, and I don't want to deal with doing lots of joins across tens of thousands of objects, because sooner or later somebody's going to run this script right after they do an update stats across the entire database, and it's going to produce an epic poop load of rows. So let's go see. Welcome to the club, Betty 2. Betato? Betato. All right, so let's go pop back over here. The first thing I'm going to check to see is if in that sysdm stats properties or in sysstats, it happens to have the row counter. So let's go add in just a comma. Let's go get SP star. Lee Brownhill caught a live show. I'm dancing, dancing, dancing. Ha, woo. Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. Oh. So I can get... Yeah, exactly, with the Unicode thing. So I can get the number of rows that were in there at the time, and I can get the number of rows sampled. That's even better. So people can see if their statistics are getting sampled and not doing the full scan. They'll know that in the alert too. Oh, I am a man among gods, whatever. So now let's say, now I know that I can get the number of rows and sampled. So let's throw them that. Plus, I'm going to reformat this just a little. I'm going to reformat this just a little because I want it to look a little better. So let's see. This makes it a little bit more obvious what we're doing. Was updated on, there we go. Plus, and had to cast. Oops, I need cast over there. Surly Death, that's funny. You'll see this is Isle of Man. It's the Isle of Man Triskelion, I think it's called. Isle of Man is this beautiful little island off the coast of Isle of Man, not Isle of Maine. I like how you say that though, but it's Isle of Man, off the coast of England. Beautiful, just wonderful little place. One of my favorite places on earth. SP, what did we say was the name of that rows? As and varchar 50. I'm just using varchar 50s all over the place. Plus rows. Forgot my little Unicode in there. Rows with plus cast with Isle of Man. I love Mon. I see what you're doing there. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Rows sampled. So I want cast SP rows sampled. Plus and rows sampled. Producing. Plus, welcome to the club, Nightmare Vav. That's kind of interesting. Cast SP steps. Whoops, I got to put the cast in there. Jeez, I didn't have that up there either. What a moron. nvarchar 50 as nvarchar 50 and steps. All right, that should do it. So that, I think, gives us everything that we want out of our warning. Damn, y'all are all in all over. Zlothque, welcome to the club. All right, so now let's see here. Oh, yes. Steps, I should say steps in the histogram, just for folks who don't know what that means. Histogram. All right, so now we have, here's our little warning that's going to pop up. I don't really like... Guardian Nation, the problem is that you have no idea where the hell you are because you're asking questions about PC setup inside a Microsoft SQL Server broadcast. That's a diagnosis problem, is you have no idea where the hell you are. Yossi says, why do you use nvarchar? But this is why I don't get a whole lot of followers, because I'm a bit of a jerk. Yossi says, why do you use nvarchar versus varchar? Because you can have Unicode object names. So like you can put Unicode stuff inside your table names. Sooner or later you'll work with a shop like SAP or whatever that puts nvarchar. You should turn it off. That's good. You put Unicode stuff inside your table names. So, all right. So now, welcome to the club, Ramon. 1987, kid, young whippersnapper. Yossi says, doesn't that sacrifice performance though? So that is a much bigger discussion. Now, do the table names sacrifice performance? No. You can use big monster characters for table names. Does it sacrifice performance on my DMV script? I don't care if it sacrifices performance. The script has to work, and it would break if I had Unicode table names. My scripts can't break. It's okay if they go slow. They're just not allowed to break. PC Ugly, welcome to the club. All right. I love Northern Canucks thing too. That's pretty funny. Jagadesh, yes, absolutely. That's my fundamentals of query tuning class. It's not what I'm covering here, but it's my fundamentals query. Oh, yes, Adrian. Yes, very good. Yes. Yes, first tab represents. A friend of mine from training classes sent me this t-shirt. I always encourage training class students and vendors and all. I'm like, I will wear whatever dumb shirts you send me. So, all right, so now we've got this. We've got the number of rows in it. One thing I do kind of want to do, I'm not a really big fan of the without commas inside here. The problem is that I would really love to have a nicely formatted string of 299 comma, like decimal separators or hundreds and thousands and all that separators. The problem is you can have really large objects that blow past the money data type. Plus, this script is going to be running people all over the world who sometimes use commas, sometimes use periods, so I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to leave it this way, even though it's not very elegant. So I have the first thing done. I now have a script that I can go run that will show me only the list of statistics that were updated in the last 15 minutes. Now, the next thing I got to do is got to get it to be able to work across all of my databases. Right now, this only works in the one database that I'm in. So I'm going to need to use the function or a SQL Server stored procedure called spms for each DB. spms for each DB will scroll through all the databases and run a script for you in every database that you have. The problem is that it takes a parameter in the form of a string of the query that it's going to execute. I'll show you an example of it. So I'm going to say, if I say right now, select star from, or no, we'll just do select DB name. So if I do select DB name, it only runs in the one database that I'm in. If I want to run that in every database that I have, that's where MS for each DB comes in. spms for each DB. And then you pass in the string that you want to run, like select DB name. And then it's going to run, parentheses on the end there. Now it's going to run in every single database. Well, except it's not going to cycle into that database unless you ask it to. You have to say use. And then when you say use, what SQL Server does is it replaces the question mark with the database that it's trying to run queries in. So now, what I need to do is I need to pass that query up top that I've written into spms for each DB. But the problem, those of you who are pretty sharp, when I run this, are going to recognize that when I try to do this with a bunch of single quotes, it's not going to work. So watch what happens. I'm going to say, and I'm actually going to copy this to a new window just so that I have my original piece over there. Let's say exec spms for each DB, and then here's my string, and then I'll also put the use at the beginning. Use, boom. Now what's going to happen? If I try to run this, it's going to blow chunks, because I got a bunch of single quotes inside here, and I got to go fix all the single quotes. All the single quotes, all the single quotes. So I'll go through and replace all the single quotes with double quotes. So I will say edit and then find and replace. I never remember where this is at. On Azure Data Studio, I kind of remember the places of it, but here not so much. Single quote, go replace with double quotes. And Jedi Mind Gorilla, right? I share that so that y'all are just as screwed as I am. So now I did it, and I need to still fix the first one and the last one. There we go. So now I got this. Now I can go run it, and it rips through all of the databases. Ta-da! Now I need to, so now you can see that it's ripping through all of the databases, but I may not care on some, for example, system databases or system objects. For example, if there's a built-in system like sysObject values, who the hell cares? I don't care about system tables whose objects, whose stats updated. So I need to tweak one other thing about this. I need to exclude system objects. To do that, I'm going to look in the sysObjects DMV. I'm going to say select star from sysObjects. I'm going to do this over in the master database, which is where I'm pointing at the screen, which is where I had the problem in here. The master database is the one that's throwing false results. So let's switch over to the master database. And here, this is the stuff that I want to exclude. Anything that says is MS shipped, I'm going to completely exclude. So I'm going to also say in my where clause up here, and object is MS shipped equals 0. So then that should welcome the Gymster. So let's try that again, and let's see if it works. So now it doesn't produce anything in here other than the users table, which was updated recently, and now I have exactly what I need. So where are we so far? I should switch over. So where are we now? So now we spent the first hour building the query that will go check for all the tables that have stats updated in the last 15 minutes. This marks a good stopping point for me to go refuel my coffee. I am well. Oh, Flying Cod, good to see you. Oh, it's very good to see you. So now what I have is that script. Now I need to integrate it into SPBlitz first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 5-minute bio break. It is like 2 minutes before the hour. Just to make it easy, I'm going to come back at 5 minutes after the hour. So I'm going to come back at 5 minutes after the hour. I'll keep the stream up and all that. I'm just going to switch to a pause screen. I'll come back at 5 minutes after the hour. I'm going to open up GitHub Desktop. I'm going to create an issue for this thing that I'm working on. I'm going to go add the warning into SPBlitz first, and I'm going to update my blog post that will have all the monthly changes for SPBlitz first in it. So in terms of what you're going to learn in the next hour is about GitHub, the way I source control the first responder kit, the way I announce blog posts for the new releases, and then we're also going to try and test it, may even test it on SQL Server 2008. We'll see what happens. So we'll regroup at 5 minutes after the hour. I will see you all back in here then. See you shortly.